Hey guys, today we're going to cover the Assassin class in Wakfu, also known as the Sram. Now, we're going to keep this guide relatively short, mainly because the Sram is probably going to get a pretty hefty nerf upcoming pretty soon. The reason is because right now it can pretty much solo any class given level. You know, if you're within 5 or 6 levels of them, you can probably kill them with little to no real effort, and the main reason is, of course, double. Now, double presents a bomb that does 20% of your maximum HP to your target. It's non-elemental, so it cannot be boosted, and more importantly, it cannot be resisted. So, yeah, that's basically all you would have to do is stack HP and send these little buggers straight to your target and blow them up. Mobs will almost always attack the target that is touching them, so as long as you can keep pushing yourself back, you can kill any target using this method. And because it only costs 1 Wakfu, you can use it 6 times. So if your HP exceeds your target's HP, you'll kill them every time. With, again, little to no effort. In terms of pushback, like, well, how do you maintain, separation from your target if they kill the clone and then walk, straight up to you? Okay, well, that's where this comes in. It only costs 2 AP, and clone, if you put enough levels into it, only costs 4. So, at level 21, you can have this thing maxed and start killing level 40s and level 50s just using the clone alone. That's all you would have to use. At later levels, however, you can elect to use invisibility. As long as you're invisible when you create your clone will also be created as an invisible unit. So you can sneak up to your opponent, you can do whatever you need to do. And if you're invisible when you do this, there's no way your target can tell the difference between you or your clones. So they will more than likely attack your clone. Another way to level is pretty much your bread and butter spell. And I have a really hard time pronouncing this name. Forbury is what I'm gonna guess. But basically it costs 2 movement, and barring the poorly translated French text here, it basically teleports you to your target's front, back, or side, whichever is basically facing away from you. Once you're at your target's back, you're going to proc Master Stabber. Now, with this maxed out, it basically gives you an extra 40% bonus back damage, which, keep in mind, the base back damage is 30%, so you'll have 70% bonus damage to your back attacks. And to make it a little bit worse, if this thing is maxed, then every single time you attack a target, every single time you attack their back, you get an extra 10% bonus damage every single time. So you don't always have to use the nuke to do the most damage. You can just simply stack low-end abilities. Okay, so beyond Master Stabber and Double, what do your 3 elemental trees actually do? Well, Fire is your damage over time tree. This one stacks Hemorrhage. Now, you can actually use your double to also stack more of these, or to stack them with low risk, using the invisibility and double's explosion to do even more damage. Whereas, let's say your opponent gets wise and decides that they're going to stop attacking your double, and they're going to just try to hunt for you, because keep in mind, you can't stay invisible forever. You would have to stack HP to maximize double, so your perception is going to be lacking. So they'll probably just wait a turn or two and try to outrun or kill your clone from a distance. So if you're stacking Hemorrhage, then Execution will be your nuke. In this case, it absorbs all of the Hemorrhage states, and I'll give you level 60 on all of your spells, by the way. At level 60, it basically does 73 damage, costs 1 Wakfu and 6 AP. Now, for every 7 levels of Hemorrhage, it tacks on an additional 4%. So if you've been using your clone to both blow up and to stack the Hemorrhage state, then you can literally teleport up to him using Forbury and absorb all of those stacks and try to nuke your opponent down in a execution style, which is pretty much what Fire represents. Now, if you want more utility, I recommend Water. In this case, it can steal Perception, it can steal Luck, it can steal HP, it can steal MP, and it can steal AP. Yeah, it's got the entire spectrum. A lot of people say that, stealing AP and MP are for Zellers. Let me just tell you from experience and just playing 11 levels of this that it is incredibly abusive. Incredibly abusive. Considering that if this thing crits, I can steal 2 AP from my target. Yeah, nobody is safe. And this doesn't have a percentage. This literally steals 2 AP. So it doesn't matter what your resistance, I'm taking your AP from you. And the same goes for MP, so I can pretty much do whatever I want. And if I stack, if I send my clone in the same way that the fire tree would have, then technically I can steal up to 4 AP if both crit. Now that's not exactly incredibly hard with all the new crit gear, by the way. You could probably steal 2 to 3 AP on average. So between you and your clone, it would not be a stretch. Not to mention your clone could explode, hide on both sides. There's a lot of utility when it comes to water. The air tree, on the other hand, is for stealth. This one maximizes Shadow Master and Sram to the bone, basically. Now, I don't really see a point in using traps, but you can use them if you go the air tree. What you do is you throw down a trap for your turn, maxed out, to increase your perception by 50%. Keep in mind, it may cost a Wakfu, but you get this Wakfu back. And so it's not incredibly horrible. It'll just cost 2 AP, and the trap does end at the end of, I think it's your next turn, actually. So it does go away when your next turn starts. So it'll just help keep you invisible for that one turn. It just basically means that if you're going to be utilizing stealth moves or more traps, you can. It does 20 HP and removes 1 MP from your target. If this is the only thing you're using and you're just going to kind of stack the field with traps, it's definitely doable and you don't really actually need any of the trees. It's kind of funny. I tried using that on a level 15 on the first version of this class that I built, and it's very tedious. It really is, but it is something you can do. And if you keep stacking perception and just keep walking over your traps, keep in mind your double can cast traps too. And your double starts with the amount of perception that you had when you created him. So you can get pretty annoying with this if you had enough mechanics on your character to pretty much litter the battlefield with traps. But again, it is incredibly tedious, but you're not very likely to get killed. Whereas if you attack during your turn, you have a percentage that you're going to stay invisible. That's it. A percentage you will stay invisible. So, even at level 100 you only get 20, which is where Shadow Master comes in. With Shadow Master, if you attack from behind, it gives you a 40% bonus to you staying invisible to your air moves. So at max, you would actually have 60% likelihood you'll stay invisible by using this attack. But again, that's at level 100. You won't have level 100 spells ever, I mean, I can give you level 60, but I doubt you'll reach that anytime soon, and that's only 13%, so, you've got Tricky Blow. Now, Tricky Blow is, it pushes you away by 1 cell. I don't really see much utility in this other than getting out of somebody's lock radius, but because it costs 4 AP, why do that when I can just simply push my opponent and do, close to the same amount of damage? You've got Forceful Blow. This is pretty much your backstabby. This is the one that you're gonna, because it costs 3 AP and does mediocre damage, level 60, 24 damage, and it adds plus 22% to damage from behind. So again, this is pretty much if you want to stack back damage. While it doesn't have the utility or the damage over time that fire has, or water, it does present an extra amount of damage. So air is viable in terms of an actual build, but it doesn't have much utility unless you're speccing invisibility. And it's going to be really hard to stack perception when everybody is abusing double and max HP. So I don't know. When the class gets nerfed, gets fixed, we'll go from there. But for now, I just don't see air as an actual usable tree. Especially considering I can, I can not only do superior damage to fire and air, I can also steal your stuff. So I don't see a reason to go either of the other 2 trees. This again is just my opinion on it, but all 3 are viable. when the class gets fixed, when they probably nerf double down to at max, it'll deal like 6% of your HP or something, or like 10% of your HP at max, you know, or maybe increase the cost or something. I could see going air, because then there's an actual reason to go invisibility. There's an actual reason to, you know, add more utility to your class rather than just simply, you know, blow people up. Okay, so anyway, we've covered pretty much your go-to spell, which is for bury. Now, it doesn't matter which element that you go, this is, again, your bread and butter spell. 2 MP, you get your targets back, generally. Every mob that you fight, you will get their back, because all mobs face you. Whereas players can rotate, but if they rotate, they're going to give you their side anyway. You know, or you can just simply create a clone to your side and then have them casually walk to the back of your target. So you have options there. Alright, so diversion, is this useful? Alright, diversion at max costs 1 AP. It has a sight unseen, which means a line of sight ability. It does not require vision to cast this. It's an AoE and has a 50% chance to turn the target's gaze in whichever direction you decide to chuck this little diversion. So is it usable? Yes, especially if you teleport to somebody's side, cast this, and you could have their back. You know, so it's got a decent amount of utility there. Now, Scram, excuse me, max gives you plus 3 AP, or excuse me, plus 3 MP. Costs 1 Wakfu. It's usable only on yourself. If no enemy is within 7 cells of you, it gives you 5 MP instead, and stacks 10% or 10 levels onto your shadowy cloak. This is something you're going to utilize with your air tree, but it's going to be something you're going to use much later. To basically go invisible and try to stay invisible. It's incredibly tricky to pull this off, especially on this type of class, because you're going to spend so much Wakfu trying to stay invisible. I think that once you are discovered, or once you lose your invisibility, I don't really see you ever being able to go back to being invisible. You know, especially considering, you know, invisibility even at max, you know, still costs a Wakfu. So, you know, here's to hoping you can, but I don't know. You can't create a god tier class. You know, there has to be some sort of risk involved. So otherwise, it would just, you know, once you go invisible, it's over with. You know, your opponent's never going to get you. It'd be like fighting a freaking precipice. I hate those little guys. Okay, so beyond that, what else is there? Well, there's Look Around You, which basically, if you played the old IOP, this is the exact same spell that he had, support ability. What it does is it turns an attacked character around. 40% chance. So every time you attack them, you have a good chance to get their back. Kind of nice. In terms of having this over diversion, I'm gonna say maybe. I don't know. Gives you options, I'm gonna say. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, you may be thinking, alright, so how do I level? And more importantly, how do I power level? Alright, so you're going to need some levels in your double if you want to start abusing level 40 mobs using the exploding technique. So the best method I find for this is to use the water tree and stealing AP. Now, for this example, we're going to be using the flatfish, the little Dia here, mainly because he only has specifically one type of close-ranged attack, and it uses all of his AP. So if you steal even one, he pretty much just stands there. So, again, you're just using the water tree to level. Once you hit that level 20 plateau, you can use any tree you want. Just pretty much get one level in your theft ability, and you're good to go. As you can see, he dies, and by stacking Master Stabber, you start hitting harder and harder. Eventually he'll fall pretty fast. Now, on to PvP. How exactly will you handle targets close to and or around your level? Well, in fighting, this Sram is pretty much self-explanatory. Get their back repeatedly, and, you know, just beat the crap out of them using either your clone, traps, just pretty much anything. There's no real downside to PvPing with the Sram. You have way more power and utility than pretty much any other class. No one can really compete, to be quite frank. Which brings us to the final thoughts. basically, due to the overpowered nature of double, you would be silly not to max it out by at least level 40. After that, of course, Master Stabber. Before or after, it doesn't matter. Those are your two class staples, along with Furberry. This is utilized again for every single tree. All of them can use it, and the more back damage, the better. Okay, so for fire, your main combo for 6 AP build is going to be Cold Blood. You're going to teleport to their back, and you're going to smack them a few times with Cold Blood, which, we're going to give you level 50 spells here, will stack on 5 levels of Hemorrhage each time you smack him. Now, the advanced combo is First Blood, which utilizes 8 AP, is First Blood into 2 Cold Bloods. First Blood if, and only if, of course, the target is unharmed. If they have full HP, go ahead and utilize this ability. Followed up by 2 Cold Bloods. After that, you're going to want to use Torment and Cold Blood. Once you have enough stacks, your nuke is Execution. It will absorb all of your hemorrhage. Now, whether or not you elected to use the clone, the double in this case, you can have more or less hemorrhage. It really just depends. Because hemorrhage is applied via any angle, you don't have to be at their back to get it. It's probably not a bad idea to always have a clone on hand. It's probably the easiest tree to maximize due to not having to always have your target's back. You don't have to worry about getting locked. Now, for the water tree, I recommend going Petty Theft. PvE, PvP, it doesn't matter. Stealing 1 AP, and at level 50, of course, getting a nice 39 damage. Nice little nuke, steals 1 AP. Followed up by Swindle, of course. So you're spending 2 AP, you're spending 5 AP, but you're getting 1 back. So, of course, that's 6 AP total. It's 7 technically, but you are stealing 1. For the advanced combo, you're going to use Petty Theft, followed by Swindle and Bloody Ripoff. All of those. This one heals you for 30% of the damage that you deal, which actually goes up to 40% once you hit level 50. So it's pretty nice to heal from that. Also, if Petty Theft happens to crit, you'll be able to cast 2 Bloody Ripoffs, which is technically like getting not really nukes, but a bunch of health back, which is pretty sweet. Alright, so onto the air. Air is probably the most difficult, I would say, because, again, not a lot of SRAMs, if they're maximizing double, will utilize Perception. They'll be maximizing all of their HP. So, if you do elect to go air, you do have options in the fact that you can stack Perception and you can stack Agility from your skill points. Now, basically, you can stack Invisibility. I guess, more specifically, you can stack Shadowy Cloak while you send your clones out to deal the damage for you. You can basically sit off in the shadows and just collect it. And while they're sitting there, teleporting to the opponent's back, tacking on whatever, level 50, they can basically go, forceful blow, forceful blow. They can throw 3 of them down, and if they don't get one-shotted by your target, the very next turn they can use Trauma, which is pretty funny. Now, that is actually kind of the cool thing. Again, late game, you have a lot of survivability here. A lot. It can compete with the Fire Tree, and it can compete with the utility of the Water Tree, but it's not as good early game as it is late game. And the main reason behind that is because there's more you can max from your tree, or from your support abilities, late game. So, here's the thing. With all 3 trees, you have Master Stabber and Double. Those are pretty much your staples. For air, you have Invisibility, Sram to the Bone, and Shadow Master. That's 5. That means at level 100 you'll have all 5 of those maxed. Okay? Invisibility you're getting because it cheapens the cost and gives you extra perception. Sram to the Bone allows you more mechanics, better perception, dodge. You mainly just want the perception and the mechanics. Just perception, I guess. For Shadow Master, it allows you to stay... well, it can give you the ability to stay invisible after attacking from the shadows, which, again, is really cool, but at max it's only 40%. And even at level 50, your go-to move, your bread and butter, forceful blow on the air tree, it only has 22%, so it'll give you 62% that you'll actually stay hidden by using this. If you manage to stay invisible and ship your double out as an invisible assassin, and he can stay invisible, that means your opponent won't be able to one-shot him. Granted, he won't deal the bonus damage, but when this gets nerfed, it won't really matter. You know, you won't really be after it just for the explosion, because he's going to be stacking on, or more specifically, he's going to be keeping the opponent busy looking for you, thinking that you're close range, when you're not. You're way across the map. You're stacking instead Shadowy Cloak. So, which basically the end game, if your double lives long enough, okay, and stacks on enough Shadowy Cloaks, he's going to be using Trauma. Because this doesn't use your Wakfu, it uses his instead, which is a duplicate of yours. It won't cost you any extra, but you'll still get the nuke out of it. So at level 50, 45 damage plus, an extra 1 HP for every 3 levels of Shadowy Cloak. Yeah, it also pushes the target back to keep them away from the real you. So again, air may be difficult in the beginning, but it has the most utility late game. Unless, of course, you can manage to build an awesome set of crit gear, then it really won't matter, because you're going to be stealing like 4 AP from your target and then laughing as he smacks you with 1 attack each turn. Because again, you can steal lock. If you have to, rather than HP, you can steal lock. And this only costs 2 AP, so you can keep doing it. You can go dupe, teleport, dupe, teleport, dupe, teleport. Anyway, so that is pretty much it for the air tree. Each one has their own use, and late game, each one has its own strength. Beyond that, yeah, that's the SRAM.